Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, red.olaughlin here for the US Global TV and Radio Network. This is the Talking Head Show. I am a researcher that I love to delve into the human body at the cellular level, looking for cause and effect relationships, treat a cause, fix a problem, treat a symptom, and you'll always be treating symptoms. Today we're doing part 2 of a 6-part series on brain health and mental illness. We started last week, and we never quite finished everything last week, but let's see if I get the slides up here. Boom. Oops, that's slide 2. I need to go back to slide 1. Do that. And now, as I mentioned a second ago, I am not associated with the medical industry at all, not a doctor, not a pharmaceutical. I'm a researcher. My first love is chemistry, and I'm using it every single day to go into the human body and look for what causes things to happen. If you know what causes A to become B, you can accelerate it, decelerate it. There's a lot of things you can do. But I'd classify brain health as our ability to function across several domains: one, sensory, cognitive, emotional, social, behavioral, and even the ability to move and to reach our full potential during our lives, absent any kind of mental mental illnesses or disorders. Last time we talked about various brain health items, our lifestyle factors, which include diet, nutrition, the prescription medicines we take, stress management, and weight management. We covered all those last week. So if you go back into last week's show, you'll be able to see those. We're going to pick it up again today at cholesterol management, and then we'll go into other factors dealing with our lifestyle, such as exercise, sleep, smoking, etc. So let's get into cholesterol management here as quickly as we can, because that is one that I think is a term that most people have never heard of. We hear about stress management, we hear about weight management, but we never hear anything about cholesterol management. And why is that even something that we need to manage? Well, it turns out that I kind of jumped back one. Cholesterol management. It turns out that cholesterol is one of those few chemicals that's needed in every single cell in the body. It makes hormones and vitamin D. When you have too much or too little, I don't know that you can have really too little. Your body makes cholesterol. It makes whatever it needs. If you take it in from your diet, now you have dietary cholesterol along with your body's production of cholesterol, and they add up to a certain thing. But if you eat a lot more cholesterol, your body makes less. If you give up cholesterol entirely, your body's going to make more. But cholesterol, when you have too much, you lose a little bit of your cognitive ability. You increase the risk of dementia. You probably even see a risk of OCD increasing, panic disorders, anxiety. But the cholesterol is super critical in our cells being able to communicate, our neurons. Statin drugs are one of the prescription medicines that shuts down the body's production. They actually take the chemical reaction that our body uses to make CoQ10 in our cholesterol, and it shuts it down. Now, they actually have a patent on one where it adds that extra CoQ10 back into the system, but they've never manufactured it. But if we want to try to optimize our cholesterol, we want to reduce our saturated fats and trans fats. We want to increase our omega-3 fatty acids. And ironically, we also want to increase our fiber. It's one of those things we don't think about very often, but fiber is very, very necessary for our cholesterol management. Exercise. We all know about our need for exercise. A lot of us do it. We get in habits and patterns. It's one of those things that, 10 years ago, I may have been doing this. Nowadays, I'm not doing as much. Some people, it's almost an addiction. Other people, it's an anti-addiction. They'll sit on the couch and never exercise. But regardless, the exercise gets the oxygen flowing through the body. It improves our learning ability, our problem solving ability, our emotional balance, reduces stress, reduces anxiety. Uh, and the best kind of exercise is aerobic. It gets a lot of oxygen going. But any kind of exercise will do, just plain walking. It's enough to get you out in the fresh air, sunshine, get you away from everything. Uh, Plasticity is a term that our brains have the ability to adapt and make changes that will enhance what they're doing, particularly in our nervous system. And when you make those kind of changes, our learning improves, our memory improves. It's part of being able to have a better memory infrastructure in our brains. And there's a few ways that we can do to help that also. And it's not necessarily exercise, but it's kind of a mental challenging thing with regard to this plasticity. Music is one, crossword puzzles, cards, Sudoku, all those kinds of things, games that involve logic. Those things actually work. So your math and word skills are things that help that plasticity in the brain actually be able to do the things that you 2 years ago wouldn't be able to do. But now when you're doing that on a routine basis, it becomes super easy to do. Let's talk about sleep. Sleep is that one quality of our lives that the body has a chance to stop, slow down, and repair everything that's there. The liver gets a chance to process all the toxins out. It gets a chance to do this. The brain does the same thing when you're sleeping. You go through a process of toxin removal. It kind of cleans out those cobwebs in our memory area. A lot of things are there. Now, if you have too little sleep, your memory is probably going to be effective. Your decision making is not going to be um, as accurate and as effective as you want. And you'll also decrease the ability of your immune system to affect anything. Uh, how do you know you might be getting too little sleep? Well, one of the giveaways is yawning. You just start dozing off a little bit, a little groggy during the day, irritable. Those are things that are kind of clues. You you start finding out maybe I need to get some more sleep. Listen to your body. I tell people that so many times. If you're tired, sleep. If you're hungry, eat. But listen to your body and make sure you're getting the right word. Uh, there are several things that affect our sleep, especially the quality of our sleep. If we're eating late at night, the digestive process is going to disturb the sleep mechanism to a point that you're not going to be able to get good quality sleep. Travel disrupts it when you cross a time zone. Stress is a big one. If you're thinking about the same thing for the first hour trying to lay down, that thing keeps popping back in your mind, whatever that may be. Relationship with somebody, finances, who knows what. That's a stress issue that you probably need to address. Caffeine, alcohol, blue lights from a TV screen, from your cell phone, all of those things are factors in that. Now, you also have uh, issues with not getting global sleep from a health perspective. Increases your risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, uh, depression, all those things increase. But as we notice in our sleep disorders, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in some of our brain functions, sleep apnea is a big, big problem there. Narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, insomnia. And then you also have a problem with excessive sleeping. If you're sleeping 12, 15 hours a day, but if you've been up for the last 10 days, maybe you need that 12 or 15. But 12 or 15 every single day, no. Snoring, if you're doing it a lot and it's loud and it's distractive, maybe you might have an issue you need to talk to your doctor about. Smoking, alcohol. Well, sometimes we need a release, and smoking will do that. Alcohol obviously gives you that little bit of relaxation right then and there. But nicotine affects our cognitive ability, it affects our mental function. It takes about 30 days to really and truly get through all of the nicotine withdrawal. Alcohol, obviously, if you have too much of that, it's going to affect your balance, your memory, your speech. It also increases the gamma aminobutyric acid. It increases our relaxation. Those are the things we're trying to do with a little bit of that extra beer or that second bottle of wine or whatever it may be. But regardless, with too much of anything, moderation is good. That's why they say a glass or two of red wine is probably okay. And it was okay. Now they're starting to say it's probably okay in the literature. But we also have other factors in our life that can be affected by smoking or alcohol. One is it increases blood pressure, high blood pressure, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, liver disease, increases risk of stroke. Also increases digestive problems. If you're not getting the digestive processes done effectively, you're not getting all of the nutrients you need. And in some studies, smoking and alcohol are related to some increase in cancer risks. Okay. The recent studies I've read on exercise show that exercise can really replace three of the primary prescription meds used in treating Alzheimer's. That exercise is as effective in providing the same level of relief. But something that's equally important as exercise, and something we don't even think much about with regard to our brain health, is what's called social interaction, social intercourse. Uh, these are things that affect our mood, our happiness. It lowers our risk of dementia when we are using it effectively. Increases our age, reduces our age-related diseases. When you don't have any kind of social environment, you're looking at increased anxiety, depression, suicide rate, stroke, cardiovascular disease. All of those things increase when we don't have that social interaction. Our self-esteem is not patted on the back and kept high. Moods, all those things happen. Isolation that we've been in with COVID, a lot of negative things are happening, and we're starting to see those now. The increase in people thinking about suicide has gone up, I would say exponentially, but significantly, as has the attempts at suicide. All of this is because we don't have that social interaction. You're seeing things now with this RSV respiratory disease for kids, and you keep them at home, you keep them all mashed up. They don't have that inner relationship. They're not sharing germs. They're not getting each. Immune systems are depressed. A lot of things are happening because we are not maintaining a level of social interaction that we need, especially as we get older. When you get that 70, 80, 90, you need that. You can't sit there in a room and vegetate. That's not the way you're going to improve your health. Learning. Learning is one of those things I put it under lifestyle because I think it should be there. It's what do we do to become better? It's our memory processing. And as we learn stuff, we actually change plasticity. We change the neural networks, our wiring in our brains. Learning can also be helped significantly by exercise, nutrition, by socialization I just talked about. Sometimes we get just not a sleep issue. Hey, I just need give me 10 minutes, and you go in and take a power nap or 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, and it does wonders. Sleeping for 3 hours will not do wonders, but sleeping for 10 to 15 minutes, it's not going to hurt you. Sleeping for 7 or 8 minutes, sometimes that's all you need, just that little bit of break in your mind. I find that sleeping 7, 8, 10 minutes is good. And sometimes if you're into a really good book, just going in and reading a chapter for 7 or 8, 9 minutes, that also just kind of calms the body down. There's a lot of ways of doing it, learning new things. But a lot of our personal experiences, our beliefs, our knowledge, all those things are part of our mental makeup. But as we start, let's say, not learning anything, we're just kind of maintaining that nice steady flow. It does affect our memory. It does affect our perceptions of things. Our knowledge isn't going to change, but our memories will over time. Sometimes some people use classical music to get them charged up to learn something. If you have somebody that you particularly, I like Ennio Morricone. He's the guy who did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and another 100 or so very common themes seen in a lot of movies. I find that music can increase your happiness, decrease your anxiety, but it can also be used to start that learning process of being able to put your brain in the right order. So it just, maybe take 5 minutes of some classical music or some music that you find relaxing, that you can just kind of mellow out a little bit, not get to mellow state 3 and fall asleep, but just mellow out a little bit. Okay, fine. I'm ready to learn something new today. So let's go into that. That takes care of that 30,000, 40,000 foot macro level that we've been talking about. So let's jump in now into the next section. Let's talk about brain health, but the actual structure of the brain. What is really and truly important in there? Well, 60% of the brain is fat, just fat. Half of that fat is omega-3 fats, primarily DHA. But that fat, it's used. It has to. That's the building blocks for our brain and nerve cells. It's absolutely essential for any kind of learning and maintaining a memory. It turns out the DHA is also critical for eye health, and it reduces anxiety. Uh, Something we don't think about very much from the omega-3 perspective is that it improves bone and joint health, also improves our sleeping and the quality of our sleep. Now, our brain can run both on glucose and on ketones, but the preferred is ketones. But most of us are just providing nothing but glucose. But if you gave up all the glucose and didn't take any at all, your body can still make glucose from ketones, fats, and proteins. Uh, but some part of the brain, it does need a little bit of glucose. So where it needs it and you don't have it available, it'll make it. No big deal. But that fat is there, and that is super critical for our brain structure. Our brain function, again, is another aspect of how well do we think? How well is our memory, our function, our decision making, our emotions? And we find that brain function can be impaired in a number of different ways. Magnesium is needed in probably at least 300 different functions in the body, but there's different molecules of magnesium. The one the brain needs more than anything else is magnesium L-threonate. That particular magnesium molecule will pass right straight through your blood-brain barrier that protects the brain from a lot of threats, a lot of toxins and things. But that MLT is needed primarily in the nerves to increase the quantity and density of the synapses of our communication ability in our brain. Iron, most of us have an adequate amount of it. Some of us have a little too little, and it can be adjusted. But if you get too much, then we end up with iron toxicity. And that becomes an issue because it does affect not only our brain, our heart, and our liver. There's a thing called EDTA, ethylene diamine tetracetic acid. It's a chelating agent. It'll actually go in there and just grab a hold of that iron, and then it'll just lead it right straight out of the body. Not something you should do on your own, although it's available to purchase over online. But if it's something that your doctor says, hey, you got a little bit too much iron toxicity, and you say, well, what can you do about it, doc? He may say, well, let's go ahead and give you a couple pills of EDTA and we'll measure again. But EDTA is something that when you have heavy metals, not only iron, but it's a way of getting rid of them. If you have a zinc deficiency, it's one of those ones that it's going to reduce an amyloid protein, and we start working with dementia. And now we're going to be talking about dementia and Alzheimer's quite a bit down the road. But zinc is one that's really needed for the brain. And ironically, intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting is one of the ones that keeps those zinc levels up. So that's something. And you'll hear me say all throughout this entire series on brain health and mental illness, intermittent fasting of any kind. It's super healthy for the brain, super healthy for the body. Sometimes we take our cell phones and we hold them right next to our ear. Well, when you look at radiation it's how strong it is, how close it is to you, and how often you do it. So if you put that cell phone right next to your ear, even though it's a minuscule amount of EMF, but if you're doing it all the time, yes, you're going to have a problem. It's probably going to reduce a little bit of niacin in the body, your vitamin B3, because of the way that radiation works. So if you need to, put the speaker on and hold it away from you. If you have to wear the cell phones, the ear things, earbuds, again, it's how long are you doing it? You're not looking at much, but if you're doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to have some level of effect. So the little bit you can do to relieve some of that time is going to pay off down the road. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about one of the problems we have in our brain is oxidation, inflammation. When we look at essential fatty acids, those are omega-3 fatty acids, but we also have omega-6s. If we keep the ratio 1-to-1, we don't have a problem. But omega-3s come specifically from vegetable oils. But if you have a ratio of more than 4-to-1 omega-6 fatty acids to omega-3 fatty acids, then you're going to increase the inflammation in the body. Easily seen with just doing a simple CRP, a C-reactive protein test, a blood test that's very inexpensive. But if you reduce that oxidation level, you're reducing one of the pathways to mental illness, dementia, Alzheimer's, and it's a big one. Inflammation and oxidation are two of the leading pathways to almost every disease. Vitamin B1 deficiency. thiamine, the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. When you have a B1 deficiency, it reduces our memory. It actually affects our gait, the way we walk. It affects our vision. And ironically, when you have a B1 deficiency, it increases our apathy. Don't ask me why, but it's one of those things they found. But also increases the risk of sleep apnea. Glucose is one of those things that goes up and down, back and forth, depending on what you eat. High glucose levels burn B1 very quickly. So if you're maintaining a high level of blood sugar, it's one of those ones. It's not a healthy way to keep everything going. So extra supplementation of B1 or extra vegetables that have it. Hypoxia is typically thought about somebody who's at altitude, at 30, 40,000 feet, and they don't have enough oxygen. You're not getting enough oxygen into your body, into your brain, and if long enough, you'll pass out. But hypoxia can modify the amount of oxygen actually getting to our brain by stroke, by TIA, transient ischemia attack, trauma, sleep apnea. You're not getting enough oxygen into the brain, and as such, you become hypoxic, and it can actually kill you. There's sleep apnea is nothing. You don't want to joke with that. If you have a problem there, it's an issue. Low oxygen, you can correct a little bit of it with exercise, but maybe you might want to talk to your doctor about getting a few sessions in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber where it's 100% oxygen, and because it's under pressure, it forces it into the tissues and organs. Something to consider. Oxygen is also increased when all you have is ketones and you don't have the blood glucose levels to go with it. Your insulin levels are very low. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one here. Okay, let's try it one more time to increase the slide. Okay. BDNF, one of my favorite topics. Consider this as the miracle growth fertilizer for your brain. BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It is, if you want to concentrate anything at all, increase your BDNF. It regrows your brain cells, it reinforces the neuronal pathways, it prevents damage to pathways, particularly those ones leading to dementia. But the synapses where the communications goes across the nerves, the dendrites that are part of that little infrastructure there, all of that is increased with BDNF. Your memory, your ability to learn things, your mood, all sorts of things are enhanced. Now, there are the two best ways to increase BDNF is to reduce carbs, because you're now pulling that insulin out of the brain, and that extra level of inflammation. They talk about type 3 diabetes as being Alzheimer's because we've overloaded the brain with a lot of inflammation from carbohydrates. But high intensity exercise, absolutely the best exercise going is going to be high intensity sprinting. There's probably not a better exercise with regard to brain health than sprinting. Yes, I know if you're a couch potato and you can't even walk, that's a problem. But for those people who can, high intensity exercise and any kind of intermittent fasting is going to increase your BDNF. And ironically, those two things also increase your human growth hormone, which affects your longevity, which affects the reduction in age-related diseases. Just a lot of good things going along with that kind of lifestyle change. Let's talk about blood glucose for a minute. You can have high or low. Obviously, let's say you eat a donut, you're going to spike your blood sugar up. But what happens is it's going to go up and then it's going to come back down again. And now you're going to have low blood sugar. And then, say, now I feel like I need to eat again. Well, it's going to go back up again. You have a Snickers bar, it goes back up again, or Coke or something. And a lot of the meals we get nowadays, you get the super fries, the super size 64-ounce drink, whatever. Lots and lots and lots of ways to have too much. And then it starts plateauing back and forth. Porpoising is probably a better word. And as we start having this, you start noticing it increases your nervousness, your irritability. Forgetfulness becomes a factor. You become restless, confused. Some people actually end up more into an OCD realm. This is not something that's really well known and advertised, but there's some research that shows that 50% of all mental disorders have some genesis with blood glucose levels. Two of the books that I love, one is Grain Brain, the other one is Wheat Belly. Those two go into a lot of detail about how a lot of kids, in particular ADD, ADHD, they put them on a glucose and low gluten diet for 30 days, and ADD, ADHD disappears. It's amazing that if you treat your brain the way it's supposed to be treated, all sorts of things can happen that are good for you. Refined sugars, bad. 4 to 6 meals a day, end up with spikes. I know there's a lot of good nutritional people out there who say, hey, you really need 6 small meals a day. The more meals you have, the longer it takes to digest everything, the higher your blood sugar is going to be. You never give your liver a chance to fully and truly recover throughout the day. Because you're doing all this is going to lower your oxygen levels because of all the activities going on. Has a tendency over time, increases the risk of brain damage one way, shape, or form. Our brains are going to shrink as we get older anyway. It's just part of our normal physiology. But if you're just constantly inundating the body with sugar, you're going to find that brain atrophy, shrinkage, is going to occur at a faster rate. And ironically, the more sugar you eat, the more hungry you're going to become. It's like, what was the old adage about, I can eat some Chinese food, feel great, and then be hungry again in 2 hours. It just, when you eat, it's going to make you want to eat more. So what are some of the things that we can do from the healthy perspective? There's going to be a lot of them, but just from this healthy brain thing that we've talked about today, if you don't do anything else, cut out sugars. Well, I can't cut them out. Cut them down. Sometimes sugars are hidden. So if you learn how to read labels, you can kind of say, well, this one has 26 grams of fat, but it has 3 grams of fiber. Well, you subtract the fiber from, or not 26 grams of fat, 26 grams of carbohydrates. You subtract the fat from the carbohydrates and you end up, but if you learn how to read labels, you can see where sugar is hidden in everything. If you're snacking, are you really hungry or is it a habit? Maybe you're just dehydrated. Increase your greens. That's where you get your magnesium and a lot of the other beneficial B vitamins that you have to have. Proteins with healthy fats. I'm not talking about your vegetable fats. I'm talking about your omega-3. Now, omega-9 fat is your olive oil. It's not an essential fatty acid. Your Mediterranean diet relies on it. Yes, a lot of people say, yeah, go to the omega-9, your olive oil. It's good. Not saying it. I would prefer myself coconut oil. It's medium chain triglyceride. I would rather have that than the olive oil, but they're both good. But for me, my preference is coconut oil. One of the things you can do is look at what you're eating. If you are forced to go to a restaurant, whether it's a fast food restaurant, don't supersize. But if you go to a really nice restaurant, the first thing they're going to bring you out is bread. And then they have dessert at the end. You may have wine with it. Just a lot of areas in there that are going to increase your amount of refined sugars. Do you need the bread at the beginning? Maybe not. Maybe just rip it in half and that's all you have. Maybe you don't need the dessert, or maybe you just eat half the dessert and leave it there. Or maybe you just take and say, hey, I need a doggy bag, take half of it home, split that level of food over 2 meals. Now you're not getting it all in one meal and spiking everything up. And the big thing is, don't eat until you're hungry, because eating will cause more hunger down the road. So many times people are hungry. They actually have those little pangs in their stomach, but it's because of dehydration, not because that you really and truly need something. And the other part is we have a habit. We wake up and I got to have breakfast, or I got to have that cup of coffee, whatever it may have to be. It's lunchtime. I got to eat because it's lunchtime, not because you're hungry, because that habit is already there. My name is Red O'Laughlin. I can be found at red.olaughlin.com. That's red, like the color, RED, OLAUGHLIN, redolaughlin.com. All my contact information is there. I'm a speaker, an author, publisher. 2 of my books that I hype a lot on disease, the causes of disease, and what you can do about it, is The Joy of Ageless Health. And if you're interested in having a longer, healthier life, reducing the aspects of any kind of age-related disease, you increase your human growth hormone, and you decrease the loss of your telomere at the end of your DNA. That's all covered in my Longevity Secrets of Healthy Aging. Found both on my website and on the, Amazon. So that today is going to conclude my topic, and I am signing off from Talking Heads on the USA Global TV, Radio, and USA Global TV and Radio Network. Thank you again, Dr. Jacqueline. I'll see you again next week. Again, adios, Red O'Laughlin. Bye now.